This episode of Super Pulp Science was brought to you by Renegade Arts Entertainment, Alice at Naptime, a graphic novel by Shea Proulx, sold wherever comic books are sold.
Attention, citizens! It's time for Super Pulp Science.
Okay, this is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made. We are here with a very far away but special guest, Shea Proulx. Say hello.
Hi.
There we go.
I am far away, but I'm here.
You're here. We don't have to just shout in absentia. I just want to dive right into it with you because my long-suffering co-host is already in New York City, so he will not do any crosstalk. But I have brought in our producer, Dan.
Hello.
Who is a voice of wisdom from on high occasionally. Occasionally. Shea, tell us about how you got into comics.
Oh, like completely accidentally.
That's the story I want. How did you just tripped, stumbled, and found yourself in comics?
Totally. Yeah, it probably started with a bookmaking class where I was forced to make a book out of office paper. And, it had like my name embossed in it, and we used presses and glue and literally stitched the book together. It's the only time I've made such a beautiful handmade book. And I had an assignment where I had to fill a book with some narrative art for the class. And I used my handmade book, and the pages were so transparent that I got addicted to this drawing process where I was always tracing and sort of looking through my page to make sequences of drawings that related to each other. So, super weird conceptual way of getting into comics. And as I went, I made book after book. I moved on to moleskin sketchbooks because the paper quality was better. And yeah, I just kept making stories without really meaning to. So I didn't get any of the skills in art school that I needed to make comics, and I learned them afterwards. Yeah.
One of the things I love about your comics journey is that so many people who get into comics, and this is me, I'm going to step up on a small soapbox here. So many people who get into comics do so because they found a stack of comics somewhere, because they inherited a collection somewhere, because they read stacks and stacks of somebody's old comics and then said, oh, I want to do that. But you were just making books with words and pictures, and then other people said to you, hey, that's comics.
No, I graduated and was just at home with a baby, actually. So the part where other people were going to tell me that I should get into comics didn't happen. Coloring books became a thing, which made me make the jump into print because I thought, okay, I could self-publish and have a reasonable debut in my city. And then I took those to Comic-Con on a whim, and everybody went, hey, you're making comics. So I actually had work in print before I really realized what I was doing.
Which is amazing. Yeah. And we're in an era, which I really love, where if there's words there and there's pictures there, we just call it comics and move along. There are a lot of people with their pitchforks and their torches standing around the castle of old school comics and ideas, but the rest of us are off playing in the fields having a good time, I think.
I think so. Yeah. I'm applying to Canada Council right now for a grant to try to convince them that I can write a script for a longer comic and make a comic that's got like a story more traditional than I have done so far. It's kind of a lengthy application because all the work I've done so far.
Yeah, it's
differently.
I've also applied for Canada Council stuff. I've gotten some and been rejected for others, but for the dear listeners who are international, the Canada Council for the Arts has a online portal where you can apply for support from the federal government and from local government to be an artist. Whoa, I know it's pretty crazy up here in socialist Canada, but it's true. So we have something happening right now in our podcast that is unusual. I can see directly into your studio space.
Yeah.
Normally the guests come and they just bring whatever knowledge they have as secret things in their pockets or their heads. But I can look beyond you at a pile of, art making supplies. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your process and just what your bookmaking is like now?
So I still carry a Molson sketchbook everywhere I go. I bring it to swimming lessons in the schoolyard and places like that. And now that the kids are in full-time school, I'm starting to have some real studio hours, and that's it's usually where I get a book ready for print and do post-production. So even though my studio is full of art stuff, the time I spend in it is usually like doing the administrative, brutal scanning and editing and minor things. But I have a lot of materials that I'd like to play around with more and try to turn towards comics again. I do a lot of like watercolor and oil painting, and I've been doing large scale installations of drawings on sort of walls, which is what I used to do in art school when I wanted to show my drawing practice to people, because I wasn't making multiple copies of things. I would just project images all over the studio and create installations that way. So instead of doing that here, I've been doing it at the planetarium downtown as part of a residency.
That's wild. Tell me more about that.
In a decade.
How did that happen?
Another mom at school is an artist and a recent graduate from the art school here, and she's one of those people that just can talk her way into anything, and she managed to talk me into this with her. So, yeah.
And so, what is it what is it that the viewer experiences there? What is the?
So they've set up a studio space for 12 artists. It's shaped like a panopticon, so everybody else can see into everybody's studio all the time. It's one big circular room.
Whoa.
With a huge light structure in it that mimics outdoor light, but in the center of the room where nobody can really use it. It's a bizarre space.
So you're like, there's like a sun in the middle, sort of? Like artificial sun, and you rotate around it?
It looks like the bottom of a spaceship. So I've been doing drawings of that and drawing them on the wall of my studio. And then because the subject of the first show they want to do is work that's about sort of space, because we're in the old planetarium. I've been drawing like giant embryos as though they're maybe planets or maybe like just alien forms being suspended under this spaceship sort of like light, as though I'm making hand gestures, which are pointless in the podcast. But yeah, my embryos and like sperms and stuff, they look like they're floating up into a spaceship on a tractor beam. Yeah, so I've been drawing that on the walls.
So why don't you, by way of contrast, tell the listener how that kind of work evolved out of the work you did on the ABC book and on that monstrosity, and I would love it if you could tell them the journey from naked yoga to where you are now.
Right. Naked yoga was like an interlude, really. Alice in the Womb is the one that's a fetal development coloring book, and it's got a glossary in the back full of text, but it's a mostly visual pictorial narrative that shows the development of a baby. But in the background, there's little sort of cellular formations that evolve into aliens, and then more like animals, and then the people that my daughter would know when she was born. So there's a whole sort of visual story within the book.
And regular comic listeners who are trying to imagine what this would look like should imagine that if Jeff Darrow took more time doing his illustration, it would approach some of the specificity and line work that Shea is putting together. They're absolutely breathtaking works. And every time I look at one of these pages, I ask myself, how the heck is this being done? Tell us your secrets.
With tiny pens. I use tiny pens.
Just a tiny pen and your brain?
Just a really tiny pen.
Why aren't there any more children, Mother?
There used to be, before the wars.
And these are done just like you're looking at reference, you're just imagining things. What is the...
It's a mix.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes I'm imagining things. Sometimes I'm looking to like scientific illustrations. I really like biology. For Alice in the Womb, when the embryo gets to a point where she was going to have really recognizable facial features, I paused, waited till I had my baby, and then took staged photographs and used those photographs to draw a real resemblance onto my character, and sort of made her body match the earlier state and kept the facial features the same.
And
yeah.
One of the things I think our listeners might find interesting is the process by which you're drawing in these sketchbooks. When you lay the new page down, you work like backwards through the book, right? So that you can trace.
Yeah, so I used to do one page at a time. Like when I made that book out of office paper back in art school, I just go page by page. And then as I slowly developed that process, I went from doing just little doodles to using things that I was seeing around me to draw from. And then I began making whole perspective images that merged perspectives with other images. So I was combining perspectives, doing sort of a whole picture plane instead of tiny marks. And then I started working backwards and front. Now I actually leave gaps between my pages so that I can make up a whole half of a perspective plane and combine it with another one, which gives me more freedom to play around with different elements. And I didn't used to have the confidence to only be able to see one half of a drawing and make up the whole other half, but now I do, so I can play around more.
Right.
I always change the rules every time.
So just for the clarity's sake of the listener, it would be like taking a Moleskine sketchbook, and rather than starting at page 1, you start at the last page so that you can do a drawing, flip part of that page over on top of it, and then copy some of that drawing, add to it, and repeat.
Now, instead of starting at the last page, I would actually work every other page through the whole book, and then finish the whole book.
And you use the actual Moleskine or the sketchbook that you're using as the limitation for how long the book will be?
No, not necessarily. Sometimes the project I feel finishes and I don't use the whole book. Yeah, they still have their own rhythm.
So I am a devoted sketchbook carrier. I'm constantly working on and whenever I'm doing it, a lifetime of math teachers looking over my shoulder and saying, "Show your work," is always in my mind. That's what I think of the sketchbook is for. But I don't do any of the finished artwork in the sketchbook, and I find it really interesting. So the point I want to make, or the point I'm trying to make, but I'm not being very eloquent about it, is that I carry a sketchbook everywhere so that no matter where I am, I can work on the idea. And then when I have time to be back in the studio, I can refine that idea. But you have managed to perfect this system of having the idea in other places and then doing the work wherever you are, at a swimming lesson or at a recital or wherever. I find that astounding.
Yeah, I don't know how I stumbled on it. I just always wanted to be drawing, I guess. But now I started with ABC Monstrosity, my ABC book where the illustrations all combine as you go, and each ABC illustration gets traced, repeated, and merged into the next and the last. So I started coloring that into just one of the printed copies of the coloring books I printed of it. It started as a coloring book. And again, I just carried my pencil crayons with me and worked on that as I go. So that was a different process because I was coloring a printed book, but the original coloring art in it remains something that I did on the go.
So the original book, which is out from Renegade Arts Entertainment, people we've given very positive shout-outs to on this podcast before, are also going to do the color version?
Yeah, well, I self-published the coloring book version, and then, they're going to do a full color version.
Full color version.
Which is really exciting, because I've been showing it to people at conventions for a long time, just the original art I've been carrying with me. Which is, kind of unique, because it's all in sequence, and it looks like the coloring book that people buy when they buy the book, but it's got, 100 hours in it, or more.
Yeah, amazing. Well, this is a perfect segue then to talk about Alice and how that project came together with Renegade Arts.
Yeah, that was a weird one because usually people pitch a book and get a go-ahead from a publisher, and then they do all the work of turning it into something finished. And I was still just working around my children's schedule, so I decided I'd just finish my book and then see what happened. So I sent Renegade a finished book, and they had a really emotional reaction to it and said yes. So I was really excited because I've been rejected by like giants in publishing a lot, and then finally got like okay, let's do it.
Well, I've said this about Renegade many times, both on the podcast and in other places, that Alex is a really excellent editor, but he has this really hard line where if he doesn't immediately feel something emotional, then the answer is no. Doesn't matter how great the concept is, no matter like how financially viable a project might sound. If he reads through it, he's like, yeah, that's a great idea. People might like that, but I didn't feel anything, so no. I mean, he's turned down a bunch of my pitches as a result of that. He just doesn't have that visceral reaction. But I can't blame him because so much of the work in your Alice book is this exploration that just makes you feel things as the layer upon layer upon layer unfolds.
Yeah, I was really surprised that I made a book that made people cry because the text is quite matter of fact, and it's the power of the illustrations and the level of detail that I captured in my daughter just sleeping day after day that moves people. So, kids read it, they don't cry, but adults cry, which is perfect because I don't want to make children cry.
Yeah, because adults know what it's like to watch their child sleeping and imagine all of that potential. And you sort of unveil it all around the image of the child in the illustration. It's just such an interesting concept, but also a powerful one. And this is, again, was something that just happened when life and your desire to make art were just sort of happening at the same time. Am I misrepresenting that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was nervous when I was pregnant with my first daughter because I thought, where is my art practice going to happen? It takes up so much of my time. And then, I actually had some kind of mental health scares around the birth. I really don't do well with limited sleep, which would just make any new parent laugh, right? It's like, oh, you need your sleep. Oh no. And I get manic and just completely lose my mind. So I had to learn how to sleep with my baby, even though they say, oh, don't, you're not allowed. So we co-slept. We always slept together. She was never in a crib. I was never able to put her down until she was, able to sleep in a bed. And so, nap time really became this window where she was asleep and I was awake, and I drew her, and I got to have my art practice just in that time. I couldn't pull all-nighters and do it then. They're bad for me.
I often tell people when we're doing our comics seminars that, the job of making your own comics is not to eliminate some element of your life to make room for comics, but to transmute that element of your life into something you can use so that it doesn't feel like wasted time. But I no more purely than in that explanation of how you did that book. I think that becomes real.
How were you unaffected by the contagion outside? Who put that in your head?
I was embarrassed of the book when I first made it because I felt like I had kids kind of before most of the people I knew had kids, and I felt like people wouldn't understand why I wanted to draw so many pictures of my own dumb baby. It just seemed like a joke almost. So I was headed to Shambhala. My husband was still doing visuals for this big outdoor rave in Nelson, British Columbia, and he'd done it for like 6 years. So I was going to take a break and go, like, just be free for 3 days. The festival was like 5, and I was going to roll in like a princess and, just have my tent all set up and stay up late and like till midnight and go to bed when everybody else was still dancing. And so I did naked yoga, which you mentioned, in anticipation of that. I was like, I'll do something sort of sexy and fun for all these young people I'm going to be around who won't understand my weird baby art. And I think they would have now, but But yeah, I drew
Yeah, the work speaks
I
for
drew
itself, I
this
think,
magazine I found in my house full of naked people in the 70s doing yoga and castles and tried to make it like tricky and weird.
Yeah,
So.
it's an amazing book too, because it's when we ran into each other at the Edmonton Expo, I think I mentioned to you that my son, who often goes through our book collection, our comic collection, he'll look at certain things, and he knows, because I have a collection that ranges, well into the blood curdling, he knows to ask, Dad, can I read this? He's only 10, right? Is this okay for me? And the interesting thing about the Naked Yoga book is that it came off the shelf, and he could tell right away that it was fine, but just the title, the word naked in it, made him pause and be like, Dad, am I allowed, is this okay? And I was like, yeah, that's fine. And we have this conversation about nudity in our house anyway, that there's a difference between the representation of a body and the representation of a body for the artist's intent, like what they're trying to project onto it versus what is actually present. And it was interesting because now that I know that you were using this magazine from the 70s, and there was just such a more laissez-faire attitude in so many of those publications at that time around nudity.
It was instructional. It was like, this is how you do yoga. You should be naked. This is the right way.
Yeah. Well, what was interesting about that is that he was like, Dad, drawing the human body, this looks really hard. And we got into this entire conversation about how drawing people is actually the standard in so many art practices and art classes, because humans have this amazing capacity to recognize other human beings. There's a large portion of your brain that only does that. The way you figure out whether you're practicing your drawing correctly is to look at something that you can immediately identify an error in. And the human body, we have this innate ability to see, oh, that proportion is wrong, or oh, that's not in relation to this other thing I drew. And it opened up this whole conversation about drawing for us. So, kudos.
Yeah.
Right?
Thanks. That makes me happy. I love drawing people. But I love the comics idea of the fact that if you draw somebody looking exactly like they do, you lose the viewer's ability to recognize themselves in your subject. So there is, I see people all the time, they sort of put down their own drawings because they think, oh, I'm not good enough at drawing people, I'm not good enough to do comics or to be in print, and you go, well, if you can tell a story, then you should, if you can tell a story better with pictures, you should use pictures, and if your pictures don't really look like any one person, then that might be good. I always try to bring the focus down to that when people are paying me compliments. It's my way of being modest, where I'm like, yeah, I can do this, but you could probably do it better if you were a worse drawer.
Have you tried to do a book where you don't rely so heavily on your obvious practice of rendering things as they are? Have you tried to do some abstraction?
I haven't done a whole book, but when I was doing Calgary Comic Expo, and this guy I know who teaches comics at Camosun College came by, and he's like, "You're not using panels. Why not?" And I was like, "Well, I've got this conceptual process. I don't need to." And he's like, "Well, but you should be able to. You should try." And, okay. And then we emailed a bit, and I was like, "I don't need to." And then I started taking his advice and did a 4-panel comic every Tuesday. I did 94, so almost 2 years worth. And in that, I tried out all different styles.
Wait, you just tossed that off as if it was not a big deal. You did 94 4-panel comics over 2 years.
Yeah, I called them all comic workshop.
Right.
Yeah.
And you just did them just for the heck of it.
Yeah, sometimes, somebody says something and you get all riled up. I don't need that advice. And then you realize, no, you're riled up because you do, and you should take it. So I took it, and I learned something. Yeah.
It's interesting because I had a similar, when I was first starting out in comics, I would do these big, sweeping, weird line drawings. I think that's partly what attracts me to the work that you're doing. And somebody who was doing comics at the time, I'm trying to remember, it might have been Laverne Kaczynski, but most of his advice that he gave me, I can remember specifically. But the point being that he said, if you're having trouble figuring out your panels, simply take a big drawing you've already done and lay it out into a grid of panels, put a gutter in over top of your illustrations, and watch what happens to a large illustration once you segment it into beats of time. Even if you intend it as one big image, you segment it into beats of time, and now you realize where the words can go.
Yeah. So I do this thing where I did all these little comics, but I put them in the same moleskin sketchbooks that I was carrying around and doing drawings from my life in. So now I have these sort of like quarters that take up 3/4 of the page that tell their own story, that incorporate traced pieces of things that were inside the panels. Sometimes the rough work becomes a background, because I do rough work when I did these 4-panel things. So I haven't published those yet, but I've started going through them and scanning them and collecting kind of what came out of the process. So the stuff that I published was just like, this is just the 4 panels, but now I've got these weird stories that start to take pieces from the comics and weave them together in a way that I didn't know I would do at the time. So I did kind of break out these bigger drawings using the like traced panels from the previous pages, and drew some backwards and played around with the characters. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Is drawing an escape for you? Is it a meditation for you? A compulsion?
All of those things. Yeah.
All of those
definitely.
Things. I basically listed all the things they are to me also, so maybe it's all that came to mind. Now, a thought just occurred to me while we were talking, that there are these delineations between sort of the fine art world, publishing of books that don't have pictures, and comic book land, as I call it. In comic book land, when you want to make a book, when you're just starting out, you draw the thing, you write the thing, you photocopy it somewhere, you make copies somewhere, and then you take it and you share it with people. But in both fine art land and in regular publishing, the idea of self-publishing a work is looked at with such disdain.
Yeah.
Have you had any experience with that push-pull from these?
Yeah, so much. People are so mean about it sometimes. Like, I've got really nice books that are, the print run is as big as Alice at Nap Time, almost. And I've had people say, "Oh, get back to me when you're published for real." And I'm going like, you could sell you could make money off me. Sell so many of these in your science gift shops, in your hotels, or your hospital gift stores, or your baby blah, blah, blah.
Where do you think that reluctance is coming from?
What's that?
Where do you think that reluctance comes from? Like, they're holding a book that is of quality in their hand. They could just put it on the shelf and sell it. Why the gatekeeping?
Oh, no. If I can get a face-to-face meeting, then I'm in way better shape. But yeah, no, I think people just have a lot of decisions to make in their businesses, basically. People said no a lot and get used to it. There's only a couple people I've talked to that are actually really mean in person.
You want to tell that story? You can leave the name out of it if you want.
I don't know. I don't really like talking shit. I'm super tempted right now, but I won't.
No hot goss for the podcast.
Yeah. If I was going to buy used books in Vancouver and new books and new comics, I would only go to Lucky's. I'll say that.
You'll only go to Lucky's. Okay, so shout out.
If you're going to get comics in Vancouver, go to Lucky's.
That's right.
There used to be another good one. They're not in business, and go to Lucky's.
I see that you're more of a fight for the things you want than against the things you don't want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I respect that.
Also, it's really satisfying when you go look at reviews of a place that you hate and you see that so many other people also had bad experiences. I recommend that. Instead of calling somebody the names you want to call them, just go look at all the other people who already did online and feel satisfied that you didn't have to tarnish your own reputation by being jaded and mean.
Is everything all right? I detect an increase in anxiety.
Must be all the excitement.
Must be.
I've had a run-in more recently since we did Apocrypha. Now I get to be the guy that people don't like. You know, it's a pretty well-reviewed book overall, but when someone, they like it, they kind of like it, or they hate it. And by extension, since I'm
Right.
the only real name in the book, because everyone else has like a little bit of obfuscation, they direct their vitriol at me,
Yeah.
which I find is a singularly strange experience.
Yeah. I expect in the coming months to experience that a little bit because I've now stepped into an editorial role as first. I'm on the board for Panel 1 in Calgary, which is a festival where we're all creators and everybody gets to network, and it's like the most fun at festivals that I have all year long. And we're doing a anthology, and we just printed our first copies and started selling them. I'm an editor with Joey Gruzecki. Everybody worked to put this thing together. The members did so much amazing work on our first issue called Rebirth. And yeah, I think I might have to like stand up for our work and our people a little bit. And,
But also you're in the role of being a gatekeeper yourself now.
Yeah, well, we are trying actually not to be gatekeepers. That's our mandate in Panel 1. I'm learning the culture of the board still, but not being a gatekeeper is part of it, and that's the thing that I think I might receive criticism for, because a lot of people, they want to see hard decisions being made, and that's not what Panel 1's for. Panel 1's for everybody to contribute things to and learn from each other.
I became what may be a semi-official. I believe it's official. You tell me, since you're on the board, whether this counts or not. Well, I was at the Happy Harbor after party, which I think will soon be renamed Wonder Harbor. But one of the, I love what Panel 1 stands for. I love how they have been sort of this big warm hug in the comics community in what is otherwise can be a prickly community. And so I said, hey, how do I become a Panel 1 member? And one of the other people there who might be embarrassed by this story, so I won't share her name just yet, she took my phone, she said, and sent an email to Panel 1 from my phone saying, I want to be a member, and then signed her name to my email and said, there, you're officially a member. Does that qualify? Am I in? Is that it?
I mean, you might want to put some stuff on the website.
Oh, okay. So there's more to it than that. Can you tell?
It's just, you might as well.
Can you tell the listener that might be saying, hey, Panel 1, they like it. How do I get involved? What are the criteria to being a Panel 1 member?
I think the criteria is working in comics, creating and like owning your own characters, whether or not you're professional or just figuring it out.
And being Canadian, I think, right?
What's that?
Is it Canadian mandate also? Or can anybody? Can an international person be on Panel 1?
Yeah, I think we're Canadian.
Oh,
but
these gatekeepers. More gatekeepers, Dan.
It's a little fuzzy. I think we're Canadian, but I don't know. I could see us being international.
That's something you want to blow wide open?
I'm not sure that it matters so much. It used to be sort of a local establishment, and then it really expanded pretty soon after it started. So.
Yeah, the context of my conversation at Happy Harbor was how I'd always wanted to be a Panel 1 member, but everyone told me, no, you have to be from Calgary or you have to be from at least that province. And I was, pouting a little bit, and then they spotted me and said, no, we changed the rules. If you're from Canada, you can be involved.
Yeah, I think we changed the rules, for sure.
Why?
Yeah. Besides, you're in Calgary so often, you might as well.
It's true.
Might as well be.
Yeah. 3 or 4 times a year it's like an honorary, right? I climbed the public art in Calgary one time. See previous podcast. So what's next for you? What are you doing? You're editing an anthology. You are on the board of a comics. Yeah. You're on the board of a comics organization. You have some books coming out from Renegade, and what else?
Yeah. I mean, so I have. You know how Joe Sack, I do read a whole ton of comics now. I used to be not inspired by the comics that I saw, and then I got onto a weird path. Now I read so many. So I shouldn't say that I'm not inspired by other people. Joe Sacco does this one, The Great War, the 25-foot drawing of the Battle of the Somme that all connect.
Yeah.
That one really inspired me a few years ago, and I drew a comic where every line connects with the next page. So rather than just being sort of a sequence of related pictures, it's all one drawing if you printed it out that way. And I've been trying to figure out how to color that, how to put the text together for that, whether or not it needs color. I think I need to animate it technically to be able to print it. I got to set it up the way a rolling background would be set up digitally. I think that's gonna have to be the way that I figure out how to. So I got stuff to learn.
Or you could do old school animation style. You could actually put it on a roll, and then just record it, rolling it, roll to roll.
Well, right now it's in a book. So first I have to make it.
First you have to put it together. Yikes. I
have to put it together without the bleed,
Wait, you did a continuous drawing where all the lines matched up, but you did it inside of a bound book.
I did it inside of a book. Yeah. It's a drawing about what it means to be a human being and still want to go on vacation. So we're such cushy, ridiculous animals that have so many comfort needs, and then we decide to put it to this next level and go on vacation. And I made it at a time when I no longer had nap time to work in. My kids were still pretty small, and I was doing all my drawing while I was on vacation. All my work was happening when everybody else was playing, because that was my vacation.
Your whole life I've taught you to see the bigger picture. Have I failed? Or are you prepared to be the woman your family needs?
Can you speak a little bit to the idea? We've talked a lot about the side hustle on the show before, and having a regular job or a day job or what we call a civilian job. And in your case, that job was being a mom. And right? So how did you find, I guess a lot of people who've come on the show have talked about that the big hurdle for them has been the self-talk of, everyone else is resting, now it's time for me to work.
Yeah.
And, as a father, but not as a mother. I know there are demands on dads out there, but hats off to moms everywhere, because the demands are very different, because they don't actually ever turn off. So how is it that you were able to, what was the self-talk that said, okay, this is my only chance to rest, but instead I'm going to work?
I was inspired by my own mother. She self-published before I did. It's kind of like a halfway point between publishing and self-publishing, where she got editorial and design help, and then still put some money into the printing process that collects royalties and has digital copies sold for her. And she sort of paved the way there. I saw her working away with 4 kids, being a stay-at-home mom at her writing career all my life. And so I always knew that it was possible. She got a Canada Council grant that she used to pay for childcare at one point. There's my family is actually full of artists, all musicians. My sister's musicians are the cousins. My mom's tone deaf, so she wrecked the musician genes. She just collapsed them in our family. We're all visual artists. My sister's a photographer. My brother's one brother's a comedian. The other one's a film producer. My great grandfather drew in World War I as a scout. He had to make maps of everything he saw. He toured with his photographs and painted in oils and watercolor. I went to my drawing studio when I was a kid. I just always was immersed in the arts. So there was no question of not doing it, I guess.
So you came from a family where when you said, I'm going to make an artistic, or I'm going to begin an artistic endeavor, it was just the expectation, not the exception.
Yeah, there's just no fanfare about it. It's just, of course you are. Why wouldn't you? Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you, Dan?
Yeah.
Of course you should. Why wouldn't you?
Career in the arts? Yeah, clearly.
So what would you say to people who are worried about making a transition or taking a chance to start something?
I would say marry well. No, I don't know. I met my husband in art school, and he comes from a family with lots of business ties in Calgary. So we've had more freedom than others. So it's hard for me to speak to other people's challenges. So I can kind of spot my privilege pretty easily, I guess. My dad, he would have been an artistic person, but he had so many kids at such a young age that he was like, I need a law degree. And, really excelled there. And having a lawyer in your camp as an artist,
Oh yeah, it's invaluable.
that you don't have to pay to look at all your contracts and see if you're going to get screwed. I don't have any advice for somebody that doesn't have that. I don't know. I can't really. I try my best to give good advice, but I know I've been lucky.
Yeah, and it's people get into a habit of apologizing for an advantage rather than simply stating it, which I think you did very eloquently. You just said, yeah, I had some advantages and so I didn't squander them. And I think that's an important part. If you have some advantages, that's what I would have to say to anyone listening that's wondering if they should start. If you have the luxury of pondering whether or not you should start an art practice of some sort, in a way, shame on you if you don't.
That's how I feel. I feel like my dad was always encouraging because he hit the pavement so hard and worked so hard all his life so that we could, be the artists that he kind of didn't get to be. Yeah.
But you're also standing in a place where you didn't throw everything aside and just, I will just make art. You literally did it in nap times.
Yeah.
In the only the tiny snippets of time that you had, you still used. You still did the day job unquestioningly the whole time, right?
Yeah, I always knew I wanted two things. I had so many teachers in school that were inspiring women who sometimes they had kids and it almost felt like they kept them a secret because they thought it would somehow delegitimize their place. And then the couples that were really open about having to balance their family lives and their practices, I just found really inspiring. So I did get to see that in a few different ways. And it made me understand it was possible. So now I've been going to, I went to the Motherhood Challenge panel in TCAF. And they had 4 mother comics artists talking about exactly the challenges they were facing. And I was really inspired by that, so I started one in Edmonton. I got Brenda Hickey to talk to me about her practice. She works on My Little Pony. And we talked with Alexander, too, who's a dad. And she actually really liked that we brought a dad in, that these weren't questions that were just posed to a group of women. I brought a dad in because I could only find one other mom at the whole exposition, that was making comics. Because there's not enough of us. It's hard. So... yeah, I want to do that panel again more in as many cities as I can.
Do you think that there are, you just used a phrase that you don't think there's that many of you. I think it's probably, or at least I hope, that it's probably true that there's lots of you, you just,
visible.
They're just waiting till nap time to do the work, right?
Yeah. Yeah, or, I had to deep dive people's Twitter accounts to figure out whether or not they had kids and families. Because I think people they worry about being written off as somebody that's just too busy to really be a professional in comics. So you keep your domestic responsibilities kind of hush-hush.
Yeah, it's a little bit of bullshit there because nobody worries if, very rarely do they worry if I say that I have 2 kids. But if my wife mentions that she has 2 kids, they wonder, is she going to be too busy for the project they're asking her to do? And that incenses me because the reason our family stays together is because she's way better at managing all of that stuff than I am.
Yeah, I'm really lucky. I've got a partner who cooks and cleans and finished getting the kids off to school because we started at 9, but school starts at 9:07, and he's always ready to step in. But yeah, it's a tricky balancing act for sure.
Comics are a group effort, but it's not just the letterer and the colorist and the designer. It's also the people in your lives outside of the margins.
Yeah. And my mom, she watched my older daughter for 2 days a week for the entire time that they were in preschool before, and then she watched the older daughter after preschool, and then when she started school, she watched the younger daughter after preschool. She just watched the younger daughter. Well, the older one, I had 2 kids. They were in school at different times. I had help all up until this year, and now they're both in full-time school, just starting last month. So I really had support there in getting this practice going. And I notice a lot now, like I'm the only one of my 4 siblings that are in Calgary. And so now I'm starting to see that I've got to repay that debt a little bit. My parents don't need a lot of care, but my dad just broke his leg. So now he does, right now. And my mom's parents need a lot of care. So now I'm spending 1 Wednesday a week with my grandpa because he can't be alone because of his dementia. It just makes him really lonely. And there's a whole pyramid. There's been lots of Comic-Cons where I was like, okay, I'm going to have 3 hours to go network with everybody because mom's coming in, and then grandpa's got to go to the hospital, then mom's got to go to the hospital, and then Ryan, my husband, can't help me because he's got to go watch the kids. And the whole pyramid kind of falls down, and there's just you left standing at your booth trying not to think about any sad things while you pitch your books.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I've been there.
Right?
I've been there, yeah.
Yeah.
We went through a year of funerals, and I found myself standing at booths trying to fill somebody else's cup with the idea of how great and inspiring this book is going to be, but inside I was just like a storm of emotions. Yeah. So it is.
So the books that I want to make now and write and sort of put more story time into are a little bit about finding those kind of bright spots and looking back at some of the weird kind of stuff that's happened in my family and memories I have around it, making them psychedelic and trippy and
Have you ever considered working with a collaborating writer? Because you sort of conceptualize the project yourself and do the whole thing. Could you work from a script, do you think, with the workflow that you have?
Yeah. I get to steal from my brother whenever anybody asks me that question. It's just, show me the script. Let's see it. Pitch to me. Give me the pitch. Yeah.
It's so true. It all disappears when you ask people to do their half of the work.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it doesn't all disappear, but that's what you need first. You get a lot of ideas come at you, and a lot of the time I say, you know what? Maybe you could tell your story better than I could. Maybe you should try some drawing first.
Right.
Too. Yeah.
Just so they know.
It depends on the
That's a devious plan for you, because then they compare anything they do to what you're doing, and then they need you even more.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can see that people think that they need somebody who's an expert draftsman, but I really believe in people's ability to tell their own stories. So I want to do that for myself, and I'm interested in collaboration for sure. But it has to be the right story.
Well, Shea, thank you so much for talking to us, for rearranging your whole life schedule so that you could be on the podcast. This has been Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made. Join the fight and make comics.